The looming threat of U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs by Canadian movement has picked up across the country.
Sources telling CNN that the president at one point wasn't happy earlier today.
In 2025, a stunning shift swept across Canada without protests, chants, or banners. According to recent data, 66% of Canadians have quietly reduced their purchases of American-made goods in stores and another 63% online. Even more telling, 70% of Canadian shoppers have intentionally switched to buying locally produced alternatives. This isn't a traditional boycott, it's a silent but powerful rejection of American brands. Canadians are voting with their wallets, and the message is crystal clear. They're quietly turning their backs on products from south of the border. In early 2025, the silent rejection of American brands started causing tangible ripples across Canada. Every month, a staggering 578,000 Canadians searched for ways to cancel their Amazon Prime memberships, 45% more than the cancellations hitting Disney+. This isn't just politics, it's people making clear choices about who deserves their loyalty. The beverage icon Coca-Cola felt the sting too, reporting a sharp 17% drop in Canadian sales in the first quarter of 2025. Starbucks CEO Brian Niccol publicly admitted that Canadian operations had struggled continuously throughout the quarter, signaling deeper issues for one of America's most recognized brands. But perhaps no one felt the chill more than Harley-Davidson. According to Moto Canada, Harley sales plummeted 22% in Q1 alone, forcing many dealerships to shut their doors. For Harley, once the roaring symbol of American freedom, the downturn wasn't just financial, it marked a cultural turning point as Canadians increasingly saw buying local as an act of national pride. As Canadians shifted away from U.S. brands in early 2025, the impact didn't stay online. It hit physical storefronts and local economies fast. Walmart Canada saw a 3% decline in web traffic in Q1, with the sharpest drops in Quebec and British Columbia, two provinces where Buy Canadian campaigns gained serious traction. Over at McDonald's Canada, the story was even more painful. Sales fell 3.6% in the first quarter of 2025, marking the brand's worst Canadian performance since the pandemic. Even though McDonald's sources much of its ingredients locally, it couldn't shake the perception of being an American corporate symbol during a time of economic tension. Meanwhile, Starbucks stores continued to empty out. After a string of weak quarters, the company's Q1 report led to a 6% drop in its stock price, as confidence in its North American performance began to waver. These numbers aren't just business metrics, they represent thousands of storefronts at risk and tens of thousands of Canadian jobs in limbo. The backlash wasn't just symbolic anymore, it was becoming structural.
The Canadians are mad, and they're showing it by saying, we're not going to spend money in America.
By 2025, tensions between the US and Canada reached a boiling point, and it wasn't just about tariffs. The spark a wave of sweeping trade measures from President Trump, followed by a headline-grabbing remark that implied Canada should be America's 51st state.
Well, we can always, look, what I'd like to see, Canada become our 51st state.
For many Canadians, that wasn't politics, it was personal. In response, Canada slapped a 25% tariff on US-made motorcycles, a direct hit to Harley-Davidson, which was already reeling from declining sales. The price hikes pushed the iconic brand even further out of reach, and in the eyes of many Canadians, Harley stopped symbolizing freedom and started representing something closer to foreign overreach. This wasn't just a trade spat anymore. It was a moment of national awakening, where economic retaliation blended with cultural resistance. American brands were no longer just logos, they were symbols of political intrusion, and for millions of Canadians, that was one step too far.
We could be looking at the end of Harley-Davidson. The current CEO of Harley is basically throwing in the towel, with the tariffs being the final nail in the coffin for trying to revive the brand.
While American brands stumbled, Canadian retailers seized the moment and the message. In Q1 2025, Loblaw, the country's largest retailer, reported double-digit growth in sales of Canadian-made products. It wasn't just a trend, it was a quiet revolution playing out in shopping carts across the country. OnlineWell, a proudly Canadian e-commerce platform, surged to $294.1 million in revenue, up 32% year-over-year, as more consumers abandoned foreign giants in favor of homegrown options. Brick-and-mortar brands also felt the shift. Canadian Tire saw a 4.7% boost in comparable sales, powered by its patriotic True North campaign focused on loyalty, local jobs, and national pride. Across the board, shoppers began treating their dollars like votes. Every purchase became a decision not just about what to buy, but who and what to support. For millions, this wasn't about boycotting. It was about building something better, starting with their own communities. In 2025, a growing number of Canadian students quietly walked away from what was once seen as the ultimate academic goal, studying in the United States. Amid political tensions and unpredictable immigration policies, thousands canceled their plans, choosing instead to stay closer to home or look elsewhere. The reversal was just as stark from the other side. The University of Toronto and UBC both reported a 27% surge in applications from American students, as many in the US began to see Canadian campuses as safer, more stable alternatives. Across the Atlantic, the UK saw a 13% rise in student visa applications in early 2025, suggesting that trust, not just rankings, is now shaping global academic decisions. For many families, the choice was no longer just about programs or prestige. It was about where students feel respected, secure, and welcome. In this new reality, education became something deeper, a reflection of values, stability, and the kind of future young people want to build. Following the shift in education and lifestyle choices, Canadians didn't stop at where they studied, they began rethinking what they wore. By Q3 2025, Nike Canada's revenue had dropped 9%, a sign that even cultural giants were vulnerable in this new era of values-first consumption. In place of global giants, local brands like Vessie, based in Vancouver, gained momentum. Known for its waterproof, sustainably made footwear, Vessie wasn't just a shoe, it became a symbol of smart, ethical consumerism. As environmental awareness grew and trust in multinational corporations faded, Canadians turned to brands that reflected both their community values and climate concerns. This wasn't just about shoes, it was about what those shoes stood for. Canadians in 2025 were no longer shopping for image, they were shopping for impact. After walking away from global sneaker brands, Canadians took their values to the taproom. In 2025, Budweiser lost significant market share in Canada, as bars and restaurants, especially in Ontario and British Columbia, began replacing it with local craft brews. And this wasn't just a passing trend. Canada's craft beer market, valued at $10 billion in 2024, is now projected to quadruple to $40 billion by 2035, riding a wave of national pride and consumer demand for authenticity. From Moosehead to Steam Whistle, local breweries are no longer niche. They're mainstream, proudly standing in for global brands that no longer feel aligned with the Canadian spirit. Just like footwear beer became a reflection of identity, each pint poured in a neighborhood bar wasn't just about flavor, it was a quiet declaration. Support your own and keep your community strong. In 2025, the tap handle wasn't just a beverage choice, it was a flag. As Canadian loyalty shifted toward local beers and homegrown sneakers, the same pattern hit the fast food world. In 2025, KFC saw a noticeable drop in revenue across provinces like Ontario and Alberta, where support for local dining surged. Platforms like Local Bites, which spotlight community-owned restaurants and regional flavors, experienced rapid growth. Canadians weren't just avoiding global chains, they were rediscovering neighborhood diners, family-owned spots, and farm-to-table eateries that reflected their identity and values. This wasn't about taste alone, it was about trust, about knowing where your food comes from and who profits from it. In a country reasserting its economic and cultural independence, even a takeout meal became a statement of belonging. In 2025, food wasn't just fuel, it was solidarity served hot. By the time fast food chains started feeling the pressure, it was clear Canada wasn't just shifting its spending habits. It was rewriting the rules of consumption itself. In 2025, more than 1 million Canadians had joined online communities like Buy Canadian on Facebook, turning a casual preference into a nationwide movement. Apps like Good On You and Mint, which help users track brand ethics, sustainability, and social impact, exploded in popularity. For millions, buying something became less about price or convenience, and more about alignment with personal values. This was no longer a passive economy. Every swipe tap or checkout became a conscious choice, a vote for transparency, for accountability, for national identity. In a country that once quietly followed global trends, Canadians in 2025 started leading something new. They weren't just spending money, they were shaping markets one decision at a time. By 2025, Canada's quiet consumer uprising had already shaken Wall Street, shuttered American storefronts, and redrawn global market lines. But this wasn't just a Canadian moment. It felt like a spark, a signal that a new kind of consumer power was emerging, one built on values, not just value. The question now is, will the rest of the world follow? Will consumers in Europe, Asia, or Latin America start asking the same questions about where their money goes and what it says about them? Because in this new era, shopping is no longer a routine. It's a reflection of identity, a vote for the future you believe in. What will you choose, personal values or global convenience? The world is shifting, and your next purchase might just be part of the story. Let us know what you think in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more deep dive breakdowns just like this one.